there we go. All
We
right.
got that one.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
So no one's from DOJ. No one ever told me that we had the witnesses bring copies. No, this is
So the executive totally that felt for not noticing and reminding him that what you're supposed to do is when you write witnesses, you're supposed to require them to provide 60 copies of their written testimony.
I had no idea.
And then you put those on the table and then people come to the hearing.
We never did that.
So somehow nobody noticed that we didn't do it for the first hearing.
Okay.
You know what I
We
mean?
didn't do it either.
That yeah. So.
for being here, and the committee will come to order. I don't see my gavel, but I guess it's there. The subcommittee will come to order. Let me thank the ranking member and the members of the subcommittee for joining me today to hold a hearing on fatherhood, an issue that is close to my heart. As Father's Day approaches this Sunday, I'm glad to have the opportunity to celebrate father and families here by learning about the new Pathway for Fathers and Families grant program. No matter how you cut it, there are a lot of vulnerable children in our society. There are children whose parents do not live together and who have substantially strained relationships. There are children who are parentless, children whose parents struggle with mental health challenges and addiction, children who lost one or both of their parents to incarceration, children whose parents are no longer alive, and of course, children who cannot live safely with their parents. These children had no say in the difficulties in their families. We must all do everything that we can to assist these families because that is what is best for children. Within our subcommittee, we have many programs that can help both parents, but understandably tend to focus a great deal on the role of mothers, such as home visiting and TANF. We also have within our jurisdiction the Responsible Fatherhood Grant, which recognize and support the critical role fathers play in family well-being. And we recently enacted the Bipartisan Family First Prevention Services Act, which provides resources to strengthen parenting wherever that is needed. Research shows that a supportive and involved father strengthens a child's emotional, physical, intellectual, and behavioral development, even if the father does not live in the same household as his child. I'm pleased to welcome Deputy Warden Duffy from the Sheridan Correctional Facility in Illinois as a witness. For about 5 years, I've worked with former Sheridan Warden Nikki Robinson, current Warden David Gomez, and the Illinois Department of Corrections to bring substantial busloads of children to see their incarcerated fathers for Father's Day. This program reconnects these individual families and keeps fathers present in their children's lives, even though the fathers are away. It supports the most fundamental relationship we have between a parent and a child. You see the joy of the children and dads spending time together, playing games, hugging. Also, you see the sadness as the time ends when the conversation's slow and children ask, "Daddy, do you have to go? Can't you stay?" Or, "Daddy, are you going with us? Can you come home with us?" One year, we had a father who had got so upset because he thought that his son was not on the bus, only to recognize that he didn't recognize his son since it had been so long since they had last seen each other. I'm grateful to the Sheridan staff for all that they do to make these visits special and meaningful for the children and families. You see, they have to change the visitation room, set up to be more developmentally friendly to the children. Further, outside visitors cannot bring anything into the prison. So the warden and his staff personally pay for the meals, the decorations, the games, and the coloring books, and they volunteer their time to make it special. On the screen right now is a picture from our visit 2 weekends ago. And now I'm going to show a short video from our recent visit. We know that well-designed fatherhood programs increase parenting skills, improve relationships between parents and children and between co-parents, and generate positive outcomes for fathers and their children. I want to work across the aisle to expand these responsible programs, these responsible fatherhood programs, that help strengthen families and support vulnerable children. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today, and thank you all for coming. And I'm delighted now to recognize the ranking member, Mrs. Volarski, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for holding this important hearing on fatherhood, and happy Father's Day to all of you in this room as you celebrate this weekend. Thanks for holding this important hearing on fatherhood and for sharing that touching video highlighting your efforts to connect fathers with their children at the Sheridan Correctional Facility each Father's Day. And to all of you that are here from Sheridan, I know this is a personal passion project of yours, Mr. Chairman, and I'm proud this subcommittee is able to bring additional attention to the important role fathers play in building strong families. We all want the best for our children, and we know intuitively and through research that when a father is around to provide emotional and financial support, child outcomes improve. When that father is in the home, those outcomes improve further, and when that father is in the home and married, children have the best outcomes. We also find that there are positives for parents. Marriage brings a greater sense of stability and satisfaction compared to couples who are cohabitating. According to research gathered by AEI scholar Brad Wilcox, the positive outcomes for children run the gamut, from improved mental health and academic achievement to reduced levels of crime in teen pregnancy. Children are more likely to excel in school and to avoid delinquency when they grow up with an involved and nurturing father. Children who report a high-quality relationship with their father are less likely to experience depression than those who don't enjoy such a relationship. One reason dads are sometimes not welcome or active in a child's life is a lack of financial contribution, sometimes resulting in a more adversarial relationship through our child support enforcement system. That is why this subcommittee has been concerned about the 7 million men who went missing from the labor force in the wake of the Great Recession. Many of them are fathers. But as the economy has improved, so have opportunities for dads. This subcommittee previously heard from Tyrone Ferens of Baltimore, who participated in Project Jumpstart with the Center for Urban Families, a federal fatherhood grantee. With their help, after 14 arrests, jail time, and court-ordered rehab, he is now a journeyman electrician and homeowner who has rebuilt his entire family. He talked about how his goal upon exiting prison was to be present in his children's lives. And since Project Jumpstart, that's exactly what he's done. His son became the first in the family to attend college, and his daughter, who is now 30 and inspired by his efforts, is going through Project Jumpstart to get a second chance at success herself. I would like to ask unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to insert into the record an article from the South Bend Tribune and an article from the Goshen News about two individual fathers in my district who are having a positive impact on their communities.
Without objection.
Thank you. Finally, in the hearing room with us today, I am honored to welcome Samuel Gonzalez. And I know, Kayla, you're right there, and I didn't get to you fast enough, but thank you for being here with him to share your story about what it means to be a dad. Very, very grateful you're here. A few years ago, I'm not sure you would have thought that you'd be testifying before a congressional committee, but with the support of the True Dads program and the It's My Community initiative, and most importantly, from your wife, Kayla, who is in the audience, to be with us here today. I'm very grateful to both of you. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to hearing from Sam and the rest of our amazing panel for the great discussion to follow. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolarski. Without objection, all members' opening statements will be made a part of the record. We have a very distinguished panel of witnesses here with us today to discuss the important issue of responsible fatherhood. They will help us to understand the most effective ways to support and improve the bond between fathers and their children, and how the federal government can help. First, I'd like to welcome Nicolette Duffy, the Assistant Warden for Programs at Sheridan Correctional Center in Sheridan, Illinois. I've been proud to partner with Warden Duffy and her colleagues at the Sheridan Correctional Center to help fathers and children spend time together for Father's Day. And they also operate a number of other outstanding programs. Next is Mr. Halbert Sullivan, founder and CEO of Father Support Center in St. Louis, Missouri. Father Support Center receives funding through the Federal Fatherhood Grant Program and does great things for the men in our community. Third, Mr. Samuel Gonzalez joins us from Oklahoma City, where he is a participant in the True Dads program. True Dads is a model fatherhood grant recipient. Fourth, we have Mr. Ryan Howard, the Executive Director of the Owens Valley Community Development Center in Bishop, California. Mr. Howard runs a culturally relevant program for Native American fathers in his area and helps them connect to their children and their heritage. Finally, we have Dr. William Bell, President and CEO of Casey Family Programs, a national foundation I and many of us have worked with over the years to better support families and reduce the need for foster care. Dr. Bell is accompanied by several foster youth alumni and parents who have navigated the foster care system and here in the audience to see our hearing and also visiting with members of Congress today about opportunities to do better by children and families using new tools in the Family First Prevention Services Act. So I want to welcome and thank all of those parents and youth as well. Each of your statements will be made a part of the record in its entirety. I would ask that you summarize your testimony in 5 minutes or less. To help you with the time, there is a timing light at your table. When you have 1 minute left, the light will switch from green to yellow, and then finally, and finally to red when 5 minutes are up. I'm usually generally pretty liberal with the time, but because we know that we're going to have another round of votes, and I want to make sure that each one of the witnesses get an opportunity to present before those votes are called. So I'm going to ask you to be as prudent in terms of the 5 minute requirement as you will. So thank you very much, and Warden Duffy, will you begin?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Davis and Ranking Member Worlarski and the members of the Subcommittee for holding this hearing. We here at Sheridan Correctional Center believe in the importance of fathers within the family unit. The building up of men to step up and return to society in a positive male role and embrace the importance of being a good father is paramount. Myself and staff at Sheridan Correctional Center take the topic seriously. Support the men incarcerated as they work to develop knowledge and skills of navigating the challenges of becoming a dad after been away from their children due to their incarceration and addiction. Sheridan Correctional Center is the largest national dedicated facility to substance abuse treatment. Sheridan provides addiction treatment and reentry services to approximately 650 men daily. We work in partnership with West Care Foundation to provide a modified therapeutic community model along with evidence-based cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, family reunification, and anger management services. Experiences from the Illinois Sheridan Correctional Center Therapeutic Community demonstrates that clients completing the West Care treatment program at Sheridan Correctional Facility saw a reduction in an approximate of 20% as compared to individuals released from other Illinois prisons. We accomplish this low recidivism rate by meeting our clients where they are treating them with the dignity they deserve, recognizing the value of human spirit. Our first priority is to provide the highest quality of services possible. We also believe that we are responsible to the communities in which we live and work. This is why we work hard to focus on helping men and families by offering specialized fatherhood and family training for men. One such program is our Fatherhood and Family Reunification Program. This is a weekend program that is offered on Saturdays for a 10-week by the West Care counselors. We are not funded for this program, so staff from both IDOC and West Care volunteer to work on Saturday mornings to offer the services. Food and supplies are donated by our volunteer services group, often by the dedicated staff who choose to provide these services and who see the results of the programming such as this. Due to the space issues and funding considerations, we are currently only able to accommodate 24 families. So we have to choose our participants very carefully. During one of our treatment sessions, a client's mother shared a powerful personal story. Each Saturday as she drove to the facility for a treatment group, she would pass by a house for sale. And she liked that house. It felt wonderful. She wondered if she could afford that home. She began looking into the possibility, and during the 10-week session, after receiving her program completion certificate, she elaborated on the story about the house. With tears flowing, she shared that she had been in a long-term physical and emotional abusive relationship before beginning their family reunification. She stated that with each session, she became stronger and more confident that she could leave the abusive relationship. She ended the story by thanking each member and letting them know that she had purchased the house to start her new life. Many members have expressed their heartfelt thanks for allowing them to participate in this family reunification program. In addition to the family reunification program, host Congressman Davis Father's Day program each year. 5 years ago, Chief Nikki Robinson, former warden at Sheridan, and Congressman Davis worked together to start this program. Warden Gomez and his staff have carried on the legacy. Every year in June at Sheridan to visit, the fathers, families come to visit, play, and have lunch with their dads. The program is a much more relaxed, open visiting setting than normal. The men and their children can get up, move about, get food, play games, and color, or just sit and talk. For the past 5 years, Chief Robinson and Warden Gomez and I have served alongside the community partner and stakeholders with the Congressman Danny Davis Visit to Dad, a free Father's Day bus trip. I wanted to elaborate on a story as illustrated from this Father's Day program. I would like to read an impact letter. It was an amazing day. Not only was I able to see my daughter on her birthday, it was the first time I was able to hold her. I would like to thank you guys for making this possible. To be honest, it meant the world to me. I only was able to meet the people to help. I was also able to meet people to help me get a job when I come home. I had just lost my child's mother to gun violence, and I've been going through so much. The only one day helped brighten my current situation. I could take all day saying how much I lost since being in jail this time, but you guys really helped me just for a little moment by letting me see my child and hold her for the first time ever, and it was her first birthday. I am such a changed man now, and how much this means to me. I couldn't do it with with the mother of my son who had died just a week ago. In closing, I would like to state that we believe that it's not only recidivism rates that can be positively affect the program like this, but that our work with fathers and families can break the intergenerational cycles of addiction, abuse, trauma, and criminal justice involvement as well. It is our hope that this work will result in less crime, much less drug use, higher quality of life overall for the residents of the state of Illinois. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Congressman Chairman Davis, Ranking Member Wolosky, and members of the subcommittee for holding this hearing. Fatherhood is an important issue for families all over the country. I've been involved in helping fathers and families succeed for over 21 years. Currently, I am the founder and CEO of the Father Support Center, St. Louis. The Father Support Center has been providing father-centered services for over 21 years, during which time we have reached over 16,000 fathers and impacted over 40,000 children. Our agency is rooted in the community. We receive referrals from family court, probation and parole, city and county justice centers, and child support enforcement, as well as we work with other agencies that provide services to families. FSC is a current recipient of the HHS New Pathways for Fathers and Families grant. We provide services to over 500 fathers annually. And our current grant is at $2 million annually, of which $400,000 goes towards evaluation. Annually, we will raise an additional $500,000 to provide different services that the grant dollars do not cover. We provide programs that take a comprehensive approach to impact the problems faced by children growing up without their dads in their lives. In 2018, our program return on investment was over $13 million on a $3.6 million investment. Counted into this program return on investment included in 2018, 183 fathers in our Responsible Fatherhood program gained employment. That equated to $5.8 million going into our local economy. In 2018, 216 fathers from our reentry program gained employment. That equated to over $3.8 million going into our local economy, and a reduction on recidivism. Our recidivism was down 12%. And in 2018, 120 fathers who had child support orders paid over $368,000 into the child support system. Since 2016, we have been involved in a pilot project with our state child support system. Come June 30th, our program would have paid over $1 million into the child support system. Fatherhood programs are very important. Our program is built around teaching responsible behavior. First, we attempt to assist the father in changing the way he thinks about himself and how he thinks about his involvement with his child. For example, one of our clients who has 2 children, ages 8 and 11, recently made a statement to his facilitator. He said, "During my first week in class, Mr. Sullivan asked me, why am I in this program? You and your family are small business owners." He stated, "I'm in this program because I need to be a better father." He further stated that I am a better father today than I was when I first started this program. That's why I'm in your program. The father came to FSC to get assistance with visitation. This child is at the center of what we do, and employment is the most urgent area that we address. FSC staff work to help fathers find employment by creating personal relationships with employers. Through these relationships, we learn exactly how likely an employer is to hire a person with barriers, because our fathers may have criminal records, no high school diploma, and no work history. Each employment staff will have a minimum of 25 prospective employers that they work with. At Father Support Center, we conduct hiring fairs. A hiring fair is not to be confused with a job fair. Employers are invited only if they are prepared to hire on the spot. An investment, and we have 6 of those per year. An investment in responsible fatherhood programs is an investment for children, families, and communities. Programs that seek to change the direction of our families, and in particular, our low-income families, should be built to be comprehensive and take a holistic approach, and should include providing a therapeutic and trusting environment. To develop trust, our staff is very father-friendly. FSC has hired most of our facilitators from fathers who had been in our program. They were actual clients. The facilitator teamed with a social worker, a therapist, and a job developer. These 3 staff will be with the client from the beginning to the end. The educated facilitator provides the day-to-day curriculum, content along with the social worker therapist. The first activity each morning is a therapeutic circle where the participants are allowed to vent. They're allowed to vent their frustrations with the therapist. The fathers are then given a chance to be heard and not just lectured to. Parenting skills training, to include activities that can enrich the father-child interaction where appropriate. As you saw with my colleague, the father-child interaction is very important. Economic stability and job readiness. Employment readiness starts with addressing literacy skills first, GED, and it ends with providing job skills training. Employment placement, healthy relationship skills building, how to interact with the mother of your child. In building a comprehensive approach, the program needs to include interventions with child support enforcement, provide trauma-informed care interventions, assistance with obtaining legal visitation and other rights, featured opportunities for father-child bonding activities, which are very important. Father-child bonding activities combined with parenting classes allow for our staff to observe the fathers actually parenting skills in action. An example of father-child bonding activities we promote normally are taking kids to the History Museum, the Science Center, movies. We tend to focus on the arts, but we occasionally will receive group tickets to sporting events. Most of our bonding activities take a half day or more. Food is a requirement when you have children at these events for that length of time. The objective of this activity is to get the father some time with his child and to observe his interaction and parenting skills with his child. One of our last bonding activities, a client expressed his thanks for the opportunity to spend time with his child. This child was 8 years old, and the father had not had time with his child for over 2 years. The father learned during this outing that his child's favorite color was. He learned what the child's favorite color was. The father came to FSC to get assistance with employment placement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking members and committee members. Sorry, it's my first time. Today I'm here all the way from Oklahoma City to thank you for your investment that you made into the program and also into me and my family. I am honored to have chosen to share with you the story of how I've grown and changed as a man this past year, as a father, a husband, and someone who works hard to provide for his family. One of the reasons I've been able to achieve good things for myself, my wife, and our family is because I participated in the program True Dads. It's a fatherhood program paid for by a reasonable fatherhood grant from the Office of Family Assistance in the Administration for Children and Families. What's more important to me is that you decided to fund programs like True Dads, mine. As you hear what I had to say, hopefully you'll agree that you got your money's worth. The best way I can help you realize that is for me to share my personal story, letting you see some of my family struggles and success. My story starts when I was a child. Growing up as the baby of 7, I knew my parents loved us. My father always was on the road. My mother always working, they're tired, didn't have time for us. They were only able to provide so much in terms of relationship with us kids. I knew that if I were to ever become a husband, like I am now, a father, I wanted to do things differently. What I thought about was I didn't know exactly how to do that. I didn't think of this. It is difficult for everyone to admit when they are struggling in their relationships, career, or as a parent, or all three. But I think it's hardest for men, taking responsibility for themselves as fathers. At least that's how I see it. You may know you need help, but it's hard to feel safe enough to let your guard down and trust that you'll find support, not judgment. So when I was first referred to True Dads, which Kayla, she's the one that was there with me, I was happy by the idea. I didn't know that there was a place that helps dads learn about parenting and how to have better relationships. I couldn't believe that getting the help I needed would be free, which was important because I didn't have a lot of money to pay for it. But I was also a bit nervous about signing up for the program. Fortunately, the program on my shoulders, the class, it got me right away. The things Kayla and I learned in the Fatherhood group made it seem like they were talking to us. They just didn't talk at us either. We learned skills to make our relationship stronger and to be great parents because we practice them as part of True Dads. Some programs only focus on part of your life, work, family, or your relationships. But life doesn't work the way for most of us. You have to work on all these things to achieve your goals. That's what I found at True Dads, a place that deals with your whole life. One of the decisions I made during my time at True Dads program was to marry Kayla. Officially becoming a father to her daughter. And creating a more secure future for the baby that Kayla and I are now having. Sorry. Kayla and I are having a son in August. Previously, I wasn't totally solid on the concept of getting married. I've been enjoying my freedom and the ability to do whatever I pleased. And Kayla's situation was complicated. She had a daughter through a previous relationship that was pretty bad for her. Was pretty complicated for her and her daughter through a previous relationship. Was pretty traumatic for them both. I wasn't sure exactly how to deal with all of that, or even how to bond with her daughter, who had already been through so much. But Kayla was special, and I wanted to, try. Through the information I learned and skills taught through True Dads, I was able to deepen my connection with both Kayla and her daughter, helping them both feel safe, and I now consider her my daughter, no matter what her birth certificate says. With my wife, daughter, and a new baby on the way, I'm loving life right now. Of course, there are still challenges. While I come to True Dads purely for the relationship and parenting services, I realize there is so much also great employment services, available services. I would end up needing. My career in construction requires a lot of income, education, and certificates, and not having one of these certificates, unfortunately, led me to losing my job. And times got tight for the company. True Dads were there for me when I didn't have work. They let me use their job resource center, helped me with writing my resume and preparing job applications. Were available to answer questions. Coached me into a new job that I start tomorrow. I have a strong drive to provide for my family, even if that means lower level work or personally going without. But it's also been great to learn about career pathways and have the support I need to get additional credentials to help me achieve professionally through True Dads. I've been able to get new certifications by participating in trainings that I have put me in a better position for career achievement to make more money to support my family. Kayla and I still have our ups and downs, like everyone else. We're not perfect. We sometimes forget to put into practice what we've learned, but we try to use the skills on a daily basis at home with our friends and coworkers as well. Through my participation in True Dads programs, I have greater knowledge of how to communicate negative conflict and more consistently demonstrate my love for my wife and family. I also have more confidence and greater control over my emotions. Apparently not. True Dad's motto is win at parenting, work, and relationships, so kids win at life. We all want great jobs, positive interpersonal relationships, and strong marriages. And I'm glad that True Dads understands that in doing well as parents and partners, it also means that we are doing right by our children and their future. I started True Dads as a single guy, doing what he wanted, doing what I wanted, and I'm finishing the program as a happily married man with the prospect of a good job and children that I love very much. I'm confident in my ability to be a great father, and I'm hopeful that I'll be able to provide for my family's needs for the years to come. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you, and I hope it plays a big part in helping people understand the importance of building the skills as fathers like I have to provide for my children and my son that will come in August. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Davis, Ranking Member Wolarski, and members of the committee. I'm Ryan Howard, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Owens Valley Career Development Center, also known as OVCDC. OVCDC is a Native American tribal organization that provides education, training, and family support through a number of federal programs, including Early Head Start, Native American Career and Technical Education, which is a Department of Ed grant, and the Tribal Temporary Assistance to Needy Families program. We are headquartered on the Bishop Paiute Indian Reservation in Bishop, California, and our programs serve 12 tribes across Central and Eastern California. At OVCDC, we see the significant impact that strong fathers contribute to family success every day, so we commend the committee for looking into this very important issue. We developed our own specific fatherhood program based on an unmet need. We realized several years ago that many of our services were tailored to our female TANF participants. This made some sense given the demographics of our caseload, which is overwhelmingly female. However, we were missing engagement with our fathers receiving TANF services. Our services also broadly excluded non-custodial fathers, even though research shows that non-custodial fathers have a significant impact, both emotionally and financially, when actively engaged with their children. We made a programmatic decision to target some specific services to our fathers by providing programming designed for them and exclusively funded through our tribal TANF program. The authorizing TANF statute includes 4 broad purposes. One of these is to encourage the formation and maintenance of 2-parent families. Our experience indicates that an actively involved father is a key component to a strong family, and thus we choose to allocate a significant portion of our resources towards this purpose. The foundation of our program is that a child's most important educators are his or her parents. It's our long-term vision that by engaging fathers in understanding and practicing responsible fatherhood, we will produce more positive outcomes for the children. OVCDC encourages all fathers who qualify for TANF to participate, and that includes non-custodial and non-biological fathers, as they play a key role in developing strong, stable, and successful families. The curriculum for our program was developed by the Native American Fatherhood and Families Association and is titled Fatherhood is Sacred. The course is designed for 12 2-hour sessions and teaches participants to connect with their Native American heritage as they become actively involved in the lives of their families. Family is truly at the heart of Native American culture, and because of that, there is no duty or role in life that's more important than fatherhood. The curriculum is designed to teach 4 core components. Those include the creator, choice, being teachable, wisdom, and service. While the curriculum provides a solid base of instructions, it is easily adaptable and exportable to different tribal communities by allowing for the incorporation of local tribal beliefs and teachings. The course is both a mixture of interactive discussion and also lecture. One area I'd like to highlight is the service component. We try to demonstrate that by engaging in service with one's family, it's not only just personal rewarding, but also strengthens the family and community bonds, as well as improving the world around you. To this end, our fatherhood groups have worked with local Forest Service offices to repair fencing at a campground, and another group built wooden benches at a tribal ceremonial ground. These group service activities strengthen the concept of service learning by giving our fatherhood groups a collective project and purpose. While we believe our program is incredibly effective, a lack of resources does limit our ability to reach more families. We've received requests for this course from local law enforcement agencies, from local prisons, and also child welfare agencies. But our TANF grant is insufficient to meet the needs of these communities with whom engagement would clearly be effective and also beneficial. To expand our program, we would need to apply for specific fatherhood grants, but we lack the grant writing expertise and would be forced to compete with states and other national nonprofits for this competitive funding. Even though statewide programs may be effective, the reality is that they often do not reach into tribal communities where the help is sometimes needed the most. Additional resources would also help us better evaluate the long-term effectiveness of our program. OVCDC does use a portion of our funding to administer a pre and post participation survey, and we also collect written testimonials. Through these surveys, our fathers indicate they've developed the ability to better control anger, have become more involved with their children through play and other activities, and have started to talk with their children more on a regular basis. They also show more positive behavior towards the child's other parent. Anecdotally, we believe these programs have resulted in reduced recidivism, but we lack the resources to truly prove that. We have not been able to conduct more intense or long-term assessments, which would provide valuable information to show the true effectiveness of the programming and help make future grant applications more competitive. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before the committee today, and I thank you for your continued support of fatherhood programs like ours. I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Good afternoon, Chairman Davis, Ranking Member Wolarski, and members of the committee. For the past 53 years, Casey Family Programs has been analyzing, developing, and informing best practices in child welfare and child well-being. We partner with child welfare agencies, community residents, business leaders, government leaders, tribal nations, nonprofit organizations, and philanthropic organizations in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Casey works to support practices and policies that increase the safety and success of children and strengthen the resilience of families. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today to talk about the critical role that fathers play in the lives of their children. Casey Family Programs has learned from research and from providing direct services for over 5 decades that most children grow up to have better outcomes in life when they are nurtured and cared for by their own families. We have also learned that fathers and their involvement are critical in achieving this result. Fathers have a significant role to play in children's physical, emotional, and social development, and they are essential partners in the prevention of child abuse, neglect, and foster care placements. We know from our work, from research, but most importantly, from talking with youth directly, that higher education, achievement, higher self-esteem, decreased acting out behavior, and higher levels of self-control in children have all been correlated to having a highly engaged and involved father. Unfortunately, child-serving systems often discount the importance of a father's involvement in the lives of their children. Too often, many government systems focus on payment of child support as the non-custodial father's only critical responsibility and method of connection to the support and rearing of their children. While financial support is important, data show that outcomes for children improve not by virtue of financial support alone, but also through high-quality relationships and safe and healthy interactions between fathers and children. Even though initiatives and investments designed to build protective factors among children have grown, father-specific programs and resources have continued to be developed at the margins, if at all. While there are a number of promising fatherhood engagement programs that currently exist, and you've heard about a number of them here today, we believe that by using the tools provided by Congress in the Family First Prevention Services Act, states and tribes have an incredible opportunity to expand and develop more of the types of programs that strengthen the connection between fathers and their children. I want to thank the committee for your leadership and for focusing attention on the opportunities before us to truly transform how we serve and support families by engaging fathers and the paternal extended family. However, if we are to take full advantage of the opportunity provided by Family First, especially for fathers who do not reside in the home with their children, we must expand the way that we conceptualize the programs that we design. Many programs, such as licensed residential family-based treatment facilities that address the needs of substance-affected parents without requiring their children to be removed, are designed only for mothers and their children, and not fathers. Approximately 1 month ago, Casey Family Programs convened 17 states who are eager and interested in accessing the prevention dollars provided in Family First. There is great enthusiasm and energy about Family First in tribes and in states across this nation. However, despite this enthusiasm, states and tribes have voiced concerns about barriers that they see to the successful and timely implementation of Family First. We continue to hear frustration expressed with the timeliness, communication, and dissemination of information regarding the evidence-based programs requirement and the establishment of the Family First Clearinghouse. For states to access the federal prevention funds, the law requires that they spend at least 50% of those funds on well-supported programs. States are concerned that the number of program options included in the federally created evidence-based clearinghouse may be too limited. In addition, specialized programs like Fatherhood programs that have demonstrated results but may not yet be categorized as well-supported programs, I think that's what my colleague was just speaking to, may be limited in use due to this requirement. The systems transformation we seek will take time and resources. While states and tribes continue the critical work of working with children and families, states and tribes need our help. They need your help and support because they are all in varying places of development, facing varying challenges around workforce, training, the availability of quality service providers, and the resources needed to build their capacity. We commend Casey Family Programs commends this committee for bringing attention to the critical importance of engaging fathers in the lives of children, especially children involved in the child welfare system. There's much more that I have to say, but in the interest of time, there's plenty in the written testimony that I've provided, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Dr. Bell, we will now proceed to our tradition of 5 minutes of questioning, and I will begin. Again, thank you all for your testimonies and for sharing with us. Sister Warden Duffy, could you make sure that you would convey to Warden Gomez that we really appreciate his interest and engagement? And my question is, many people view correctional institutions as places where you've got to stay on top of the individuals in terms of trying to have compliance with whatever the requirements are. How supportive has the Illinois Department of Corrections been to this activity at Sheridan?
Sir, I will definitely convey to Warden Gomez your appreciation for our continued support for the Father's Day program. The Illinois Department of Corrections is 100% behind reentry programs, especially focusing on fathers and reentering into the community with the most positive support, community support, programs to help reduce recidivism, bringing families together. We definitely have got a new focus on evidence-based programs now that focus on such programs.
Thank you very much, and I certainly look forward every year to the Saturday coming up. Mr. Sullivan, I must tell you, I have been so impressed with the work that you all are doing, and this is not my first encounter with you on the fatherhood issues. How receptive is the community where you're located to the program that you run?
Thank you, Chairman. We've been doing this work for 21 years. Our community is wide open. I list off a number of agencies that refer into our work, but over 45% of our referrals come from word of mouth. When I say community, I'm talking about family members making referrals, moms, grandmothers, aunts making referrals into the program. When I talk about the commitment to the program, you can believe I thank God for my federal grant, but I also thank the community for the other resources that we're able to raise from our community that we cannot use federal dollars to spend. And that community has been behind us for 21 years. As the founder, I didn't start off with federal money. I started off with community money. In the late 90s, 98, 99, so forth, the president put monies into responsible fatherhood work. When those dollars went away after about 3 years or so, a lot of fatherhood agencies or programs, they failed. But in St. Louis, we grew. Thank God for our community in St. Louis. We not only grew in the ability to keep our doors open, but we're seeing 500 in the fatherhood program, about another 200 in the reentry program, and it doesn't matter what you labor it, every guy comes into my program goes through responsible fatherhood. Whether it's reentry, skip rope, he's gonna get some responsible fatherhood when he comes through my doors.
Well, thank you very much. You know, we've always heard, Mr. Gonzalez, that a man ain't supposed to cry. And of course, the chairman ain't supposed to cry either. But you know, I've been going to hearings now for about 40 years. And I don't ever recall reaching in my pocket at a hearing for a handkerchief or something that would just kind of help me through the moment. Is there any advice that you would give to other men who may have been at the space where you were before you came into the program?
Whenever I joined the program, I was, like I said, I was excited for it. And I would have to say that this is the biggest opportunity that I've ever wanted, was to be a good dad. And I would have to tell them that, you know, to actually understand about how being a parent would probably go through this program, True Dad, because they did it. I have a better view of being a better father, and not just that, but a co-parent to my daughter, you know, because I might be, you know, the stepdad, but she's my baby. And like I said, once I have that opportunity to sign that birth certificate, I will. I would just tell them, if they want to learn more about being a real dad. I mean, there's a difference between a dad and a father. You know, anybody can call themselves a dad, but it takes a father to be there. It takes them to want to love their child, to interact with them, to spend time with them, to love them. That's what makes a father to me, not a dad.
Thank you all so very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gonzalez, happy Father's Day again. And, you know, I just have to pause and just say this. One of the things that we've been looking at, and I've been involved with Chairman Davis as well, is looking at human beings as human beings again, and not just numbers that receive government help, but people, inserting people back into this equation where we help each other and we value human dignity again, and it crosses party lines, and it doesn't belong to anybody but us. And when these two gentlemen got up to come to you and help you through that testimony, it was such a great example of what we're talking about on this entire committee, which is inserting compassion and people back into helping each other survive and to get through the issues that we all face to be successful and have a shot at the American dream. So congratulations again on your marriage. and on your new family member coming in August or sooner. So thanks again for being here. Just for a second, I wanted to focus on the motto of True Dads, which is win at parenting, work and relationships, so kids win at life. And in my community in Northern Indiana, we have strong values about work and family. It makes a great environment for folks to raise their children. But when pieces are missing, most recently due to opioids that have taken parents from our homes, and especially fathers, it does have consequences for kids. I saw this during my 4 years my husband and I spent working with children in the Eastern European country of Romania, which has multiple levels of problems. But I see now in my own community, with the help of my husband, who's an elementary school teacher, just how this translates out into our everyday life in a country that most people from outside of this country think that we all have the world by the tail. And without fathers or men around, we need to work so much harder to help kids understand the value of working until a job is done, the importance of teamwork, even how to handle the hierarchy relationships that we all deal with, whether it's father, son, coach, player, and eventually boss, employee. Mr. Gonzalez, you talked about in your written statement about wanting to be a better parent but not knowing how. Just so we really get this simplicity of what you've been talking about, what are some of the things you look forward to doing with your kids in the coming months or years? What does that list look like?
Well, ma'am, there's a lot of things I would love to do. Like I said, I'm new to all the parenting stuff, and I would love to play tea time with my daughter, or when my son comes, we be able to play them video games and go outside and throw the ball. You don't really see that a whole lot these days, and I would love to do that with my kids in the future. And I already play cars with my daughter sometimes. So I mean, and we play around. We do a lot that I've never done before, and it's just grown as time progresses. So when she gets older, I know she's going to get to that point in the age where she's going, I don't want to do that no more, Dad. Well, I do. But I want to spend time with them. I want to, have tea time with my daughter. I want to play video games or throw the ball outside with my son when he gets older. I want to spend that quality time with my family because now I know how important it is to them, but most importantly, how more important it is to my kids. So that's what
Well, thanks again for being here to both of you. And, for the folks that watch these hearings on C-SPAN, sometimes I wonder how they do, but sometimes in the middle of the night, people are writing into our staffs talking about what happened on a committee day or that kind of thing. And I'm just glad you're here to share a message to other fathers as we go into a Father's Day that basically says you can do it. I did it, you can do it. And that is so much the desire, and my passion is to be able to do something that actually helps, where we all help each other and we put the human enrichment right back in where it's been taken out years ago. Dr. Bell, your written testimony talks about efforts in Indiana to engage fathers through the Department of Child Services. They made a concerted effort to adjust and develop programming specifically for men. Are we seeing other states doing this, and do you draw any lessons we can learn from Indiana?
Yes, we are seeing other states move down this pathway, but I think the lesson that I would draw and extend, which was in the oral testimony, is how do we reconceptualize what we mean when we talk about fatherhood programs? And how do we engage fathers as parents more than just as breadwinners? Because when I was listening to Sam talk, and he talked about, I want to spend time with my child. That is one of the most critical aspects. It's not so much what you're doing in that time, as long as it is positive, healthy engagement, and you're developing a relationship. Because it is that relationship, Sam, that will determine whether or not she says, I don't want to do that anymore. Because she's going to want to be around you. And I think that's the thing that we would say to any state that is looking to develop healthy programs, is that reconceptualize what you think about the role of the father is in a family. And that is what we've learned from Indiana, and we're sharing with others.
That's great. Thanks so much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, first of all, let me thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Your testimony was very, very moving and also so powerful. it's a powerful message to fathers everywhere. So thank you. And Mr. Howard, as a representative of California, I welcome you here. In California, there are more than 3,000 families that are tribal TANF beneficiaries. And one of the things that stood out to me in your testimony is that your program serves a very distinct population compared to some of the larger state and nonprofit-run family support programs that receive TANF funding. Can you expand on how embedding cultural Native American components and training into your program has made it more successful? And can you give an example of a father that's changed through your program, how they were when they came in, what they did, and then how they were when they came out?
Sure. Thank you for the question. For our program serving the Native American population, it is always important in any services that we're providing that we make it relevant to them and relatable. One of the things that we find as an important factor in a family or an individual becoming self-sufficient is really having self-identity and really understanding their history and having that strong understanding. So we find oftentimes, especially our service area is very broad. We serve tribal communities. We also serve urban American Indian population that they, families, if they don't always have a strong understanding of their cultural identity, they really appreciate when we're bringing that in because that's part of what helps them to learn and helps them to, ultimately move themselves and their families forward. One of, I guess an example I can provide is at the end of every one of our 12-week sessions, we do sort of a celebration for those participants where we allow them to come up and also bring their family members, and we provide dinner, and we allow them to share some of their stories. And so one particular father that I can think of had recently been incarcerated, had come out and had enrolled in our 12-week program. And he'd actually done that once before and only made it through a couple weeks. And then other circumstances forced him to spend time elsewhere. But he ended up coming back and actually completing the program. And one of the things that he shared was that he really, in terms of this aspect of communicating with his children, didn't realize the importance of that until he had actually gone through the program and actually met and talked with other fathers and, got some new strategies to engage his children. So, he currently is not, he hasn't gone back into the system. He's currently doing really well. And so it's just examples like that that I think show the effectiveness of the programs at the way it's engaging and also having fathers think more responsibly about, their contributions to their own families.
And I was also struck by what you said about focusing not just on biological fathers, but also on non-custodial fathers and father figures. And it's really important because a modern family may not conform to this stereotype. Today, grandparents, aunts, uncles, LGBTQ couples may also provide for children, and programs should ensure that these individuals get support as well. So can you tell me how your program defines fatherhood and what services are available to the non-custodial fathers, and give examples of what kind of participants you've had that are like these father figures, non-custodial fathers?
Sure. One of the important aspects of that is just like you said, the modern family is a little bit different. Our program opens up to any couples that present themselves as adults, as an adult couple. So that opens the door for same-sex participants in our programs. One of the areas where we have seen an increase in our caseload is in our grandparents or caretaker relatives. And so again, that's another segment of the population that we don't often thinking of as needing these services, but sometimes it is good for them, especially if they've raised their kids and now they're raising grandkids. So I think, thinking more broadly of that definition of who's really that father figure in those children's lives is important. I'm trying to remember the second part of your question. I'm sorry.
Well, just other examples of non-custodial parents.
Yeah, so, again, couples living together. It could be a boyfriend that's in the home that's, living, presenting as a couple, a grandparent. It could even be an uncle. So we really use sort of a broad definition of that, and so they are able to participate in pretty much most of our programming as long as they meet the definition, that broad definition.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you to all the witnesses for being here with us today. You know, as the father of 3 children, I want to thank the subcommittee for taking time to address how we can support families. We know from research that outcomes for children are better when parents are married, and believe that the best foundations for a stable home and a prosperous future. However, we also know that we have millions of single parents throughout the country doing their best through a variety of circumstances of keeping together and making their family successful. Unfortunately, we've also seen that some of the welfare programs have unfairly pushed fathers to the side and in terms of the focus that they had and the results of what they've ended up. The 1996 welfare reform in particular focused on increasing child care and work for single moms. However, it did overlook one of the 4 factors for spending TANF funds, which is to encourage the formation and maintenance of 2-parent families. Clearly, increasing responsibility for fatherhood should remain a top priority. That's why reforms to TANF that we propose for the Jobs for Success Act promote greater opportunities for fathers to engage in workforce programs because fathers are an important part of the child's development and should be financially responsible, engaged in improving those outcomes for those children or their children. In my home state of Kansas, we've had success in reaching fathers when mothers apply for child care and food stamps through reforms to increase the child support cooperation. You know, 6 months after this reform was enacted in Kansas, the households that had originally not cooperated received an increase of almost 39% in child support, a total of nearly $665,000. That's money that helps that family be more stable to help the child in their development. Unfortunately, currently Kansas has an administration that's seeking to roll back some of those successful reforms enacted for assistance programs like TANF by allowing people who haven't followed mandated work requirements to continue receiving assistance. Not only does this ignore our law, but also the reforms are aimed at encouraging work and child support cooperation support families and should not be ignored. With currently 5 million child support cases not being collected annually throughout the country, keeping dads accountable and involved obviously will help for child support standpoint, but it's one area that we can help keep the fathers more engaged in their children's lives. One of the things we've talked about in the panel, and I look forward to hearing more as we continue through this process, is what are some of those best opportunities we can do to help keep children on the best path for success. Mr. Gonzalez, I want to thank you for sharing your story this morning. You know, you mentioned you're starting a new job, and part of that's due to your involvement with True Dads. Can you tell a little bit more about the support and the encouragement and the resources that True Dads use to help you connect, to help you get more stable and then get the training that helped you move forward with your career?
With the training that I requested through True Dads was whenever we was speaking to my coach about it, and they've helped me in many ways, such as the resource center, the resume making, application process and stuff. I did not know how to make a resume at all, so with their resource, they helped me, and they were there to answer any questions that I had. Some of my jobs required some safety certifications, such as the OSHA 510, 511, the OCSS, and CPR first aid, and the OSHA 30 classes, which was the job that I'm taking over tomorrow as a safety coordinator. So.
Yep. So
they did not have any of the resources available at the center. They had a list of places that would help us, such as medical, dental, vision, anything that we needed outside of True Dads.
Yeah, that's where some of those greater programs have the greater benefits is working together and who's got the best expertise to help with that. So I appreciate hearing that story. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you very much. And we will now
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, as well as the male colleagues on this dais, our colleagues, and those males in the audience. Happy Father's Day to all of you. I lost my father 2 years ago, and he was such an instrumental part of my life. As the only girl, I was definitely a daddy's girl, and And it is just remarkable to me how so many male figures stand in the gap of so many troubled youth as well as young people at risk. And we have several programs in the state of Alabama in my own district that I'm very proud of. In the city of Birmingham, we have a program called Growing Kings, Building Stronger Men Every Day. And Growing Kings is a mentoring program for at-risk youth. And I have lots of friends who have served as mentors in that program. And my dad, having been a coach, he was a surrogate father to so many young folks. And my mom was a high school librarian. So I feel very blessed to have had that opportunity. And while I don't have children of my own, I know when you talk about reconceptualizing fatherhood, we can also reconceptualize motherhood. Oftentimes it's not, it's the nurturing that one received that's really most important. And so figuring out ways that we as federal government can serve as a conduit to invest in our greatest resource, which are our people, and in doing so, help uplift families. And that's when families are in crisis, whether it's incarceration, whether it's single mothers trying to raise their children or single fathers trying to raise kids. Being able to provide that uplifting support is critically important. So my first question is to you, Mr. Sullivan. You talked about successfully using federal grant dollars for your program, but before that you had community money. What have you seen to be the biggest help in terms of fostering programs that promote fatherhood and that serve and undergird the development of fatherhood, which is not just the physical but also the mental bond that goes on with children and their fathers, and provide them with the skills that they need, parenting skills as well as work skills?
When you say what has been the biggest help, I assume you're talking about resource-wise?
Yep.
Well, I would say the federal government dollars has been the biggest help. It's one thing to receive discretionary dollars out of your community. That is great, and we need those dollars. But the federal government has a tendency to hold you accountable. Accountability for us has helped us to strengthen the work that we do. The federal government dollars also come with different words, and some of them I don't understand. Best practice.
Yes,
research-based.
Evidence-based.
Evidence-based. Although I say I may not understand it, what it encourage you to do is to dig deeper into your field, deeper into your practice, to learn from what others have done in order to make your work better work. And we've been able to do that.
The single piece of the federal dollars that has helped you the most has been what?
The push towards the evidence-based practice, the push towards the research, to indulge yourself and your programming, learn from policy, learn from practice to better. What I hope to do is to better my program. 21 years ago, when I got involved in this, I was making it up as I go. Okay, I'm a product of the community. My mainline staff, they come out of the community. They were once in our program, so we made it up as we go.
I hear you.
However, we got involved with seeking those dollars because they will allow you a greater reach, allow you to be able to provide to more. Those first 5 or 6 years, I was fortunate if we could provide to 80 guys a year.
That's
I'm
awesome.
doing about 750 guys.
What do you think recommendations would you make in terms of how we can strengthen those federal programs?
More
money?
More money.
Mr. Gonzalez, I wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and just applaud you for uplifting, inspiring story of your life. And I know that it's your life's journey is still continuing, and look forward to the next chapter of your life. But I wanted to ask you if you had to talk to lawmakers who literally have the purse string, what would you say was the single most valuable program that that helped you in True Dads? Was it the certification program? Was it the work program? Or was it?
It was the classes together.
Okay.
The classes is what got us the most, because every time they were talking about something, it got us. Like, we would look at each other and be like, that's us. So it's not all about, oh, True Dads can provide this for me. It's about, this is what True Dads can make me into a better father. So it's not to me, it's not all about the programs or, hey, True Dads will get me this certification for my job. It's True Dads can make me a better father. That was most important.
So the opportunity for you and Kayla to have one-on-one coaching, mentoring, training about parenting.
They have a thing called the listener tactic. Is when I give her the opportunity to talk and I sit back and listen, and once she's done, it goes to me and she listens, and I basically say, hey, look, this is how you feel about it, and I respect that. And so we give each other the opportunity, and whenever it gets too out of hand, we make it safe for our daughter. And normally she will say that's part of the 3 keys is to make it safe. And when we're in front of our daughter and we let it get out a little bit out of control, time out. We call a timeout, or she'll come up and say, hey, make it safe. And that right there will bring me back, okay, this is what we learned in class and this is what we need to do.
Very good. Well, happy Father's Day, and I know that you will make an excellent father to the new baby, and your daughter is blessed to have you as a dad as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. This has been very good. I lost my father about a month ago, and he lost his father when he was 14. And I always wondered how he knew how to be such a good father when he lost his father so young, but somehow he did it. And he taught us when we were young that you shake someone's hand, you look them in the eye. And I was always blessed because growing up and throughout our whole life, if you met somebody who knew my dad, they always said he was a great guy, all the time. So I feel very blessed. When I was one of 5 kids, and Christmas and everything, we'd always say, Dad, what do you want for Christmas? What do you want for your birthday? He said, I just want your love and respect. That's all I ever wanted. So I feel very fortunate. So I got married late. I didn't know if I'd ever have the opportunity to have someone say, Daddy's home. But I do have a 5-year-old right now, and a 5-year-old son, and a 1-year-old daughter. And it just thrills me when I see my son, and he wants to come up here to the Capitol, and he wants to put on a tie and a coat. And I'm an Army doctor, and how he wants to get that Army uniform and play with the stethoscope and all that good stuff. And our daughter's adopted, and it just thrills me when I walk in that door and she screams Daddy and comes running. And I thought, she wouldn't have had that. She wouldn't have had that if she wasn't adopted. And we feel so blessed, and you realize how much influence you have on their life and how important this is. So it's just beyond the personal responsibility of yourself, but what influence you have on these children. Mr. Gonzalez, congratulations on your marriage, your 2 children. As Congresswoman Sewell said, your kids are blessed. They really are. And you can't see behind you, but you got one woman who is so proud of you. Yeah, you can feel it, right? It's just coming out. And all the best of luck. Mr. Sullivan, I look at the work you're doing, it's phenomenal. But I got a question for you. Your background, from what I understand, you spent time in prison. And how did you make this change, and then be able to have such an influence on so many other people?
Congressman, I'm going to tell you, you may not like it, but it was God. I
have no problem with that, sir.
Thank you. It was God all the way. On one of my last trips in, I had already told myself that I was not coming back, but I came back, and I just said, I can't do this by myself. I'm going to need some help. And I just cried out, and help became available through my father. And I've been walking that path ever since. I learn about my father as much as I can. I learn about other entities as well, but I stay very closely to my father. And then I began to equip myself with knowledge as led by him. I discovered that I had done horrible things in my community. I grew up in the 50s and the 60s where black pride was a big thing, but here I was destroying my own community, so I decided to give back. My journey took me first to substance abuse, which I was a dope fiend, so I decided I wanted to be a drug counselor. As I moved down that path, they invited me to be on the board of the agency that I was came out of, and I saw drug addicts relapse real fast. I thank God I've got 26 years in with no relapse, but I saw relapse happening real fast. In that process, I changed my mindset. I might want to work with kids. I want to work with kids so that they don't make the same decisions that I made at the age I started making bad decisions around about 14 years old. Came from a great family. We were just P-O, not P-O-O-R. Came from a great family. And so with that being said, I came down this journey. When I got down the journey, about to graduate with a master's degree, I came in contact with some kids that did not have fathers in their lives. And I thought about my own life, and I thought about the things that did not occur, that these kids were occurring. I thought about the value of a father. Parents are the first role model. The father being at the events. The little girl who is called Princess, she's told she's beautiful. She's bought her first trinkets by the father. Along my journey, I read about the different negatives that occur, associated my own life, my own things in the community with it, and I says, this is the direction that I want to go.
Yeah, you had enough evidence in your life. You didn't need to read it on a white paper anywhere, did you? And I appreciate it. And with that too, Warden, the work that you're doing, we recently passed prison reform, and I think there's a lot we can do within our prison system. Imagine leaving with the skills that we're talking about, and imagine leaving with a skill towards a job. So you have a pretty captive audience at that time, and I just hope we continue down this path of trying to make changes in people's lives in that way. Because one of the things that did strike me too is there's a difference between the time you spend with that child and child support. There is a big difference. And anyway, I thank you all for being here and for the work that you're doing and sharing your experiences. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and the ranking member for giving us the opportunity to have this larger discussion, because I believe it's the basis of the development of a lot of communities right here in terms of fathers taking the lead. So I applaud you for showing this. Mr. Bell, in your testimony, you stated that the passage of the Family First Prevention Service Act has the potential to transform how states, tribes support families, but there are some barriers to implementation. Can you please explain what are those barriers are and how Congress can help to overcome them?
I would say that for me, one of the major things that Congress can do is to think about what you intended when you passed this law. And I believe that the essence of what I have seen in the law, what I've seen from states and tribes who are seeking to implement the law, is that there's an incredible opportunity here to build something that did not exist prior to Families First, and that is an effort around prevention up front. And that effort around prevention up front, I believe, is embedded in some of the conversations that we're having here. Prevention, and one of the things that I say in the written testimony is that fatherhood in and of itself is a preventive service. Because what fathers do is to help shape an individual into the fabric of who they will become as an adult. But what the father is offering in that shaping is the notion that each child can be in control of their own future. And so the challenges with Families First right now is just getting it started. The beginning of Families First, drawing down prevention money, is supposed to be October 1st, 2019. That's 15 weeks away. There's been one jurisdiction that has submitted a plan to be approved to deliver and use the dollars in Families First, and they have not gotten the information and response necessary in order to move forward. So I would just come back to say to Congress, what you intended when you passed this law, I believe, was to revolutionize the way that we treated families who were struggling, and that we were not going to continue to use foster care as the most frequently utilized intervention in their lives. That you intended for us to be able to embrace families. And Congressman, when you said that there's a difference between child support and I just said child support and child support, because one child support is about giving dollars. The other child support is about giving yourself. And so the challenge with Families First is that it is not yet implemented, and we are 15 weeks away. The other challenge is that people don't fully understand what will be in the evidence-based clearinghouse and how many programs will be available in the evidence-based clearinghouse. And if you are restricted to utilizing these dollars on a certain set of programs, and you only have 5 programs in there, then you're restricted on what you're going to be able to do with the dollars. So I would suggest that we need to have a broader conversation about implementation, and then there needs to be a joint conversation with states, with tribes, and with Congress, and with the administration about how are we walking together to fully support children in this nation, whether they're tribal children, whether they're community children in St. Louis, or whether they're the children in rural Mississippi, where I'm from. That we have to come together to give families the power to control their own destiny. And that's what I believe Families First is designed to do.
Mr. Sullivan, you mentioned the importance of community organizations to fatherhood programs. I think that is absolutely critical, and in my office, we try to work as much as possible with community organizations back in Philadelphia because they're the ones on the ground making a difference. Can you please explain why partnerships with community organizations are so important when it comes to the success of the Father Support Center?
Early on, the partnerships with community organizations allowed us to be able to receive services for our dads. Early on, in 1997, 98, 99, there was little to no federal support or dollars because of the relationships that we developed with community organizations, community-based organizations. We were able to provide services. Early on, it was just me. I was able to provide employment training services by way of working with another community-based organizations. I was able to provide therapeutic services. I've been addressing trauma-informed situations since about 1999. I was able to provide transportation dollars because I didn't have any transportation services. So the community-based organizations are very valuable to assisting families to be able to build and come together. The community should be a part of helping to build children. Our states, they do a great job, but oftentimes resources can go in another direction versus coming straight to a viable community-based organization.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just wanted to start by, I'm sure, as all my colleagues echoed, Sam, your testimony was very impactful, and you know, we share a common bond. I'm the youngest of 12. You're the youngest of 7, right? And my father passed when I was 2. And so what I have experienced, and that was 45 years ago, I'm 47 years old. And that path, at times, has been very difficult in the sense of not having that father figure in my life. And it's been a struggle of mine, to be perfectly honest with you. And now that I have 2 children who are 19 and 21 in a month, you know, I try to spend as much time as I possibly can with them because of that loss, that lack of guidance that I had from not having that father figure in my life. But I was fortunate in my life to come across a couple people. My swim coach, Fred Seether, who I think about often. He was a mentor. My college swim coach, Mike Shaberly, who was a father figure and a role model of mine. And those 2 individuals did the best they could to kind of fill that hole. And then my mom obviously did yeoman's work being a mother and a father to try to fill that scar, if you would. And so, you know, today, for example, I had an opportunity to share with some time with leaders of the nation, leaders of the world today, actually, on a phone call. And, you know, CEO of a Fortune 50 company. And I got to tell you, the richest man I've met today is you. Because you you have recognized something in your journey that your kids are going to be proud of, and that you are going to change direction of for their entire life. And no dollar can equate to the riches that you achieved. And so I just come here today to applaud you. Love that story, and it's okay to cry. I've cried many times and cried again today, and that's all right. And one of the things that frustrates me, and oftentimes in these hearings, and today it's not one of those days, but is that as a Republican, I don't have a heart. I don't care about people, and that we put these requirements on programs because somehow we want to take away those dollars to the people that need it most. That uncompassionate Republican. But I hope I demonstrate here to you today, and to each of you, as a Republican, a proud Republican, I share the commitment that my colleagues on the other side share, to using our precious, hard-working taxpayer dollar to give that opportunity to succeed that no program does, but you do by taking advantage of that program. And so I guess from your experience, Sam, in that program, how would you measure success? As a lawmaker, what advice could you give me to say this program works, this one doesn't? What could you give me as accountability so that we hold those taxpayer dollars, hold our responsibility for those taxpayer dollars into check?
Proof. Like my parents always said, and friends have always said, actions are better than words. And somebody has to be motivated and dedicated to do the program. And if they're not, then they're not going to accomplish nothing. Proving and accomplishing things and showing that is proof. So I think, with everything that your dad has done to me and has provided for me and as a father, is proof, is what they...
So Dr. Bell, to respond to Sam's point there, you made a comment in your testimony about Mr. Howard's program that doesn't have the resource for proof. How would you respond to Sam to say, how can we prove success on these programs with maybe haven't had the anecdotal data to back it up?
I think part of it is that there are organizations that can align and support a program that doesn't have the research base to move things forward. There are universities across this country that can open their doors and provide the research support that is necessary. The comments that I was making is that when a program is under-resourced, the ability to actually prove that what they have done meets the evidence-based standard is virtually impossible for that program to do it alone. And I think that is something that we need to think about from a congressional perspective and from the laws, because Families First is written now. And it is one that requires this evidence-based process that is already well-defined. And this program would have to find a way to either come across money or find a partnership with a foundation like Casey Family Programs, which we can't be the partner for every organization in the country, find a university partnership that is willing to do what is necessary. But in order to have what is proven in the lives of the people who have come through these doors be accepted as an evidence-based program, it has to go through this process that is already defined. And that is something that I don't think that was considered when we were passing this law. And it is now in the implementation part of it, but I think it's something that we have to find a way to correct.
But it's still compassionate to require that proof.
I think it absolutely is, and that's what I think was being said here, is that when you actually can say more than just anecdotally that this, if you do these 5 things, you will get a similar result. That is an important aspect of proving that a program works. And it's not just enough for me to say, well, I have 5 people.
Amen. With that, I yield back.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank the chairman and the ranking member for making this hearing possible. I think this is really quite amazing. I just want to say, with regard to both the FIPSA funding and the NPFF funding, that I think it's really quite essential. But I do want to lean into the evidence-based based approaches and ask some questions maybe of Dr. Bell and of Mr. Sullivan in particular. Does it keep you awake at night thinking about the evidence-based results, that they don't take into account where people are? Mr. Sullivan is a success story. Do we have to wait 26 years to prove that, oh yeah, this worked? Providing these resources created a good, successful person like him. On the other hand, will this create an incentive for people to sort of churn people through the program so that that it can appear that they're successful? I remember some of the alcohol treatment programs where they grind you through in 30 days, dry you out, and send you on your way, and then check, oh yeah, we were successful in getting them off substance abuse. Can you just tell me number one, what kinds of evidence-based approaches that we ought to revisit, so that we can give the kind of flexibility to the program so that they can actually take the time to work with people?
Well, I would start with the category. So evidence-based is the end of the line. But there is promising practice, there's well-supported practice, which are two categories that are not as rigorous as the end-of-the-line evidence-based. And one of the things that I indicated in my testimony is that 50% of the programming that states and tribes can use the resources for would be well-supported programs. And so I think that there's an opportunity for us to help programs understand the distinction between promising, well-supported, and evidence-based. But the science behind the evidence is about being able to say to someone, if you use this, it's like medicine. We have evidence from medical trials that says that if you take this pill, then a certain percentage of the time, because also in those trials, there are the ones that don't have the outcome that we're looking for. I'm looking at the doctor sitting here as I'm saying that. But the science behind it is intended to be able to say, I know that I'm using taxpayer dollars to pay for something, and I understand that what I'm buying is going to get me the results that I'm looking for.
Okay, so I was very curious because the PACT did a study and they found that some of these programs didn't improve the self-esteem of the fathers. It didn't work toward helping people toward co-parenting, and it didn't necessarily improve the income of fathers in the program. Are these things you think money, Mr. Sullivan, will help us lean into? And what's your experience? I mean, you've talked about getting people. Well, we got Sam here who got a great new job, and so he's an example of what can be done. The proper resources. You think that resources is an issue for closing the gap of stuff that's doable?
I think resources and a lack of resources are always part of the problem. Resources will be part of the answer. I think we need to take a look at some of the truer issues when we talk about evidence-based, resource-based, and things of that nature. I always question that. I ask, whose evidence are we looking at?
Yeah.
Who's conducting the evidence? When we talk
Whose
about
report will you believe?
Exactly. When we talk about the different studies, who conducted that study? What was their construct? What was their mindset? I participate in studies, and oftentimes researchers, when they bring you the framework that they want you to work from, they could change how you're doing your work in order to fit into the framework. So the researcher will bring a certain perspective to the work that they're doing as well. I take a closer look at many factors. I have three main things that I look at for success. Is he working? Is he paying his child support? Is he seeing his child? Now, from those three things, there may be other elements that I might pull from, but I design what I see or want to see for success for our program and for our people.
Let me take my last second here to talk about child support. The only witness missing from this panel, Mr. Davis, is Paul Ryan, former Speaker of the House, because in the Budget Committee, we passed numerous times the child support pass-through legislation where the child support, we incentivize the payment of child support by passing every dime of it through to the custodial parent instead of old Medicaid bills, admin costs, and so on. And so I think when we mark this up, I would hope that this committee would look at that. And if we have to drag Paul Ryan in from his vacation, we'll do that. And I yield back.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay. And Sam, let me tell you, the only father worse than you was my dad. My dad would let me eat as much cotton candy as I wanted till I got sick to my stomach. So I know the kind of dad you are. That's bad. You can't do that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rice.
What a great hearing. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for putting this together, and Ms. Walorski, and thank you to all the witnesses for what you had to say. Mr. Sullivan, I was so moved by your testimony, and you said that what saved you was God, and I pray every day for God to use me as a tool to lift all his people. And you know, one of the things that really I'm curious about is your program faith-based? Do you have a faith-based program?
No, sir, my program is not a faith-based program. Okay. Not in that sense.
And I look at these problems nationwide, and I look at my district, and it seems like the need for this kind of thing is growing and not shrinking, which makes me think that the problem is getting worse and not better. What do you think, Mr. Sullivan?
I think there are a lot of other new factors that may be leaning toward it appearing to look worse. New factors, this recent crisis, this opioid crisis will lead to continued fatherlessness. The way our criminal justice system operates will lean towards more fatherlessness. Then there's another factor. Our country is engaged on several continents in several different wars that may lead to more fatherlessness. I think that we need to look more closely at our society. We live in the greatest one in the world, but we have an economic problem in our communities. Paying people $9, $10 an hour, that's not going to get it when the average per capita income is about $50,000 or $60,000, and I make $9 an hour. We need to give some thought process to how we can change that for those communities. We call them at-risk communities. I guarantee you most of those people in those communities would not call themselves at risk. They said we poor.
I've got 3 counties in my district that are just, they're historically majority African American. 30% of the people live in poverty. 30% of the people don't work. And on the other hand, I've got, employers screaming for employees. How do I bring these people, how do I bring this glaring need on the one hand and this supply of people, how do I bring these people back and plug them in? Help me with that.
If you believe what I believe, then you know there's a devil in the planet too. At our agency, our primary goal is to enhance responsible behavior, but we center that around the child. We use the therapeutic processes that help individuals to start thinking differently. If we can get them to look at how they perceive themselves differently, they can then adjust their attitude, which will adjust their behavior. Not everybody that comes into our program is successful. I have federal evaluations wanting to know why I put so many out, because I have certain rules that you must adhere to. You can't be late. You can't wear your pants falling down. You got to use the appropriate type of a language while you're in the program. Those things will cause you to be withdrawn. Now, you can come back, okay? Now, we also let it be well known in our community that we work diligently. Last report, we managed to get 72% of our felons hired. We work diligently to get you hired, but we require that you follow certain rules. In other words, with the devil being around, I can't save everybody, but we require that you participate in a process of saving yourself.
I got people telling me that they have to train people to show up to work on time and that they and wearing appropriate clothes and that kind of thing. You deal with all that?
I have a lot of people telling me that my program is a little bit too tough. 5 days a week from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock for 6 weeks.
Sounds like work.
Practicing being on time. That's right. Practice to be on time. And we require that if you miss 2 days or late 2 days, the Fed's gonna get mad at me because I ain't gonna reach my numbers. I'm gonna drop you. You can come back, but right now we are practicing. Employment is a very high thing. Time spent for the child, as we know, is the most valuable thing. Time spent decreases negative peer pressure. Time spent is a part of modeling good behavior. But a man without a job cannot be a good daddy. He can't buy ice cream.
You know what,
Can't
sir?
buy tennis shoes.
It sounds to me like you're being a father to 750 people at a time.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Bell, it seems like the problem is getting worse. Is it getting worse, and what can we do to slow it down?
I would say that we're opening our eyes to see more, and we're responding differently, particularly in the way that we're responding in the opioid crisis.
So you're saying it's not getting worse, it's just we're now recognizing.
We're recognizing, because in the crack crisis, we treated the addicted people as though they were criminals. In the opioid crisis, we're treating them as people who have a disease, and we're trying to find a different way to engage them, and so therefore people are availing themselves for treatment, but they're also highly addicted substances that they're dealing with. And so I think that the more that we are able to see what is going on, it requires us to behave differently as the lawmakers, to behave differently as the program providers, to behave differently as the foundations or the researchers. But ultimately, what we've got to do is embrace people as human beings and understand what addiction is and understand the long history of living in, I don't like to use the word poverty, living in insufficient income environments. Because the sufficiency of income is something that we can do something about. The tax base that pays for the public schools that our children go to is something that we can do something about. But if you're living in an insufficient income community, then your tax base and your home ownership produces a lesser amount of resources to pay for your education environment than it would if you lived in a higher income environment. And so we have a history that has been built on top of itself for many, many years, where generations of people have grown up in insufficiency of income, and therefore the quality of the schools that they go to, the quality of the institutions in their communities are less than the quality of schools and institutions in other communities. And until we're willing to address that long history and change, and it's not just the sufficiency of income, but to change the institutions where we're allowing children to be raised. I'm from Washington State, in around the city of Seattle. There is a body of water in about a mile wide. If a child is born today on one side of the body of that water, that child's life expectancy is 10 years less than a child born on the other side of that body of water. And we know that. And until we're willing to address what we know, because we are responsible and accountable for what we know. And we do know that there's that 20% of the approximately 33,000 residential zip codes in this country contain about 80% of all of the children who live in poverty in America. We know that 20% of the approximately 33,000 residential zip codes in this country contain 76% of all of the adults who are 25 years or older, whose highest level of academic achievement is something less than a GED. Until we're willing to actually address the long-standing lack of equity in the way children are allowed to exist on a day-to-day basis, we're going to be dealing with these challenges. And when we open our eyes, it may look like the problem has gotten worse. But if you've lived in one of these 6,600 zip codes that I'm talking about, it's been worse all your life.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank all of the witnesses for your testimony, and please be advised that members have 2 weeks to submit written questions to be answered later in writing Those questions and your answers will be made part of the former hearing record. An excellent hearing. I want to thank again all of the witnesses. I want to thank the members for attending. And I certainly want to thank all of the staff for putting together such a hearing as this. I couldn't help but think of my own father who lived with me the last 5 years of his life, that is on weekends and holidays, and I heard him through all of the testimony. And the thing that he often ended with was, "Enough said, go ahead." It's been a great hearing. Thank you all so much. Hearing is adjourned.